Hello, David Zaritsky for the Bond Experience. Welcome back. I'm here with my good friend, James Lamdin. James.
David.
Thank you for having us here today.
Glad you could be here. All of you.
Yeah, and by the way, there is an expansive group of people. We're not going to show you them because they're not camera ready. They've been walking around New York City.
It's very sweaty out. We get that Indian summer thing.
Sweat has left our body.
Yeah.
We have nothing left but bone and flesh. It's disgusting.
Well, I mean, there's a skeleton theme to Live and Let Die.
Thank you for a wonderful segue. This is James, a professional at Analog Shift. And by the way, let's talk about Analog Shift because we are sitting, what I loved how you referred to, in your home. Tell us about your home.
Well, I ran out of space for all my neat stuff, so I put it in my office.
Okay.
I started Analog Shift basically to justify buying all the watches I ever wanted. Because if you're a dealer, it's inventory and thus not a problem.
It's your work.
Yeah.
That's right.
Exactly. And then I've been very fortunate to have cultivated a brand around that called Analog Shift. Our original idea was to just sort of defragment the highly fragmented secondary marketplace for vintage and pre-owned timepieces. And then we did that for many, many years, making friends all around the world and sort of part-time treasure hunting, part-time storytelling. Until we were acquired by Watches of Switzerland, a London-based luxury watch retailing brand that,
you know them well, yeah.
You know, they have some neat watches, and they kind of liked what we were doing, and we liked working with them, so they brought us in-house, and now Analog Shift is essentially the vintage and pre-owned division for Watches of Switzerland.
Okay, so let's break this apart. And by the way, this is a lifestyle channel, as you know, so we got to talk about lifestyle. I'm wearing, for example, all of our brown. I've got an Omega watch on, and it is a little bit, I wouldn't call it vintage, but it is from Quantum of Solace.
It's like neo-vintage.
I like that.
I made that up.
Okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do new terms.
Yeah.
But I am drinking neat a 15-year-old Macallan. We've got our friends from Macallan who are helping to make the event even better. We've got a
social lubricant.
Oh, I like this too.
Yeah.
How many of these? We're going to play bingo at the end of how many new terms you have.
Yeah.
We've got Globetrotter over here with Macallan. It's amazing. So we're really taking in a lot of different brands today. To me, this is about storytelling. Because we're talking about James Bond, 50th anniversary of Live and Let Die, but we're also living in these brand moments.
Absolutely.
Talk to me about lifestyle, watches, and storytelling and how they all converge together.
Absolutely. So watch collectors, like any sort of fan group, can come at it from a number of different angles, right? For watches, there's a design element, there's a mechanical geekery to the little springs and gears going on inside, some of which we understand and some of which we don't. The rest of it just Swiss magic, little elves running in there.
That's the magic.
That's the magic, yeah.
Elves, right.
I've been doing this professionally for years, and that's what I've discovered.
You have Buddy on the employment ring. I understand that.
That's right.
Yeah.
There's become a bit of an investment angle, which has become more and more a part of the conversation. There's a lifestyle angle, for sure, and that it just feels good, and there's a little fashion bling. Mm-hmm. No harm in that. But then there's this sort of romantic X factor. And for me, that was my point of entry into watches. I think for a lot of collectors, it's something that they inherited either literally or figuratively from father, or grandfather, and uncle. They have these objects which are passed down and they're bestowed with this sort of romantic ideal that it transcends. It's not just an object anymore. It has some story that's ingrained in it. And I think watches, which are all about time, kind of become timeless things when you get to write your chapter into the object. And then of course there's how it affects, or how it's affected by the rest of the world and the social input that the watch has, like a Bond watch.
Yeah. A lot of people say that when you buy a watch that has a story to it, either in the brand itself or the history or connection to a movie like Live and Let Die, you're really just borrowing the watch, but you're inhabiting the story that it tells. For example, again, I'm going to draw back to this one, Quantum of Solace. It means so much to me because it's a little bit of an underdog movie.
Yeah.
You know, not everybody loves it. If you love it, you're kind of a poster child. You like it?
I love it.
I'm adopting
it. It was like
official.
It was a super solid middle act to a trilogy that never got finished.
Yeah. Hands up in the audience. Who likes Quantum of Solace? Great. Everybody else leave.
Yeah. Out.
Exit is that way. New York City's over there. But more importantly, To me, it's about escapism. I could be in a very stressful corporate meeting, finance breathing down my back like fire-breathing dragons, and suddenly I look at my watch and I go, I remember that time that Bond killed Slate in the hotel room.
Ooh.
And it's about escapism. So
you're thinking about murder in a hotel during board meetings?
It's like you could read my mind. Happily, that will be edited out. No, it won't. No, that'll be in there. But my employees know what I do. So how many people walk into analog shift saying to themselves, I'm here to become part of a story, to have an escapism, or do they just say, I have no idea what I'm going to like. I'm just going to let something affect me?
You know, I think that it's probably 50-50.
Huh.
We definitely have people come in here. We live in a really cool time. It's a very dynamic time in the watch industry. There's so much more information about watches available to enthusiasts today. Mm-hmm. And there's more happening in the industry than at any point in human history. Mechanical watches, by the way, are completely and utterly obsolete and have been since at least the 70s. Mm. So what is it about the mechanical watch that keeps people interested? Well, you're involved in it. Whether it's a manual wound watch, so you have to literally wind yourself by hand, or if it's a perpetually winding watch, an automatic watch that gets its power by wearing it. There's a connection between the wearer and the machine. That it's very romantic and it's hard to put into words, but you get it or you don't. And so the people who walk in, they either have a very particular idea of what it is they're looking for, or they just sort of are looking for that inspiration. They may say, I'm kind of interested in those dressy watches I've been hearing about, or what do you got in the way of diving watches? And we've got a little bit of something for everyone.
So you've got a sort of a Sherpa to them, kind of steer them in one direction or another. By the way, again, another term that I'm going to adopt from you is this romanticism. I've always told people that if you are into James Bond, there is something about you, man, woman, I don't care, it's not gender specific or age specific. You like the pomp and circumstance of things that have been forgotten. It could be shaving with a straight razor. It could be taking a little extra moment to pick out a tuxedo or iron a certain way. It doesn't need to be, I'll dare say it in a place like this,
expensive.
It doesn't need to be expensive.
That's right.
It could be a moment of making coffee in a Chemex, which costs $20 to buy a Chemex.
Is that all it does?
Is that all it does? That's right. Well, it tells the time.
Well, listen, I went back last summer. I was in the south of France with 2 weeks to do nothing but sit by the pool and eat amazing food.
Bragger.
It was the first vacation in a while.
Okay.
And I lived it up, but I brought a stack of Ian Fleming's books with me, which I hadn't touched in years.
Yeah.
And I reread a bunch of them. And I was reminded of the level of detail that Fleming took writing about Bond's interactions in his daily routines, the food he was eating, the hotel rooms he was staying in, the car he was driving. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh my God, this is where it came from.
Yeah.
At one point he writes about, I think it's an Asprey weather station in his hotel room in Casino Royale. I'm like, I need that.
Right.
I don't know what that is, but I need it.
He took ridiculous pleasure in some of the most mundane things that we today, and unfortunately, we live in a society, and this is not a political statement, so everybody don't buckle their seats up, but we live in a society right now where we're trying to get easier and faster, and to me, this is about, James Bond in general is about slowing things down. When you watch a good James Bond movie, I said it in a video a couple weeks ago, when you watch From Russia with Love, I can't sit there and multitask. I've got to watch From Russia with Love from beginning to end.
Sure.
Octopussy, I can multitask. It's just my thing. But to me, James Bond is slowing down, and the Bond lifestyle is sometimes about slowing things down.
I think it's kind of analog.
Oh, we did not plan that.
No,
It looked like that.
Yeah. No, I do, and unfortunately, you and some of the people in this room have cost me a lot of money as I've gone down sartorial rabbit holes.
For sure.
And it's so bad. But it's so great.
Yeah.
Because I think Fleming's interest in luxury was, again, not necessarily about dollar value, but about quality of living and slowing it down and enjoying everything in the moment. And I truly believe, by intent or circumstance of just universal fate, that has also translated into the films.
Yes.
And so there is a bit of truth to the fact that the stuff that he's wearing on screen, or the people around him, all of it, it's of quality and it's thought out.
It is.
And the brands that are associated with the 007 lifestyle, they're great. And I did not care about shoes, like, at all. And then, listen, I had to follow in your footsteps. I bought an Aston Martin Vantage.
Did you?
I did. And you know what? I didn't have shoes that were nice enough to drive that car.
Oh, yeah. So you got the car before you got the shoes?
Yeah.
All
and
right.
then I discovered Santoni leather. And now, thank you, Travis, if you're watching. I have spent a fortune on Santoni shoes, and then everything else after that, because it is sort of immersing yourself in this world of brands, yes, but also I think more of an experiential way of living your life.
And it's crazy too, because you mentioned going on vacation and taking Fleming with you. When Fleming first wrote these books, a part of this was to remove the reader from some of the, not just the mundane, but the stress and those luxury moments and travel locations, which we sometimes take for granted. That now you can walk down Fifth Avenue over here and walk into any store.
That's right.
It's air conditioned and see all these luxury brands. It wasn't like that. Certainly in England, it wasn't like that back then. I'm going to ask you some controversial stuff, because this seems like a very nice
I'm a Lazenby guy. I'm just going to say it right now.
And that'll conclude this video. No. So, do you feel like the James Bond lifestyle has become too easy to engage with, too easy to acquire? We go on 007.com, we click a button, we get a doo-doo rabbit in the mail.
Did you get a doo-doo rabbit?
I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, here's one of the things that I've certainly enjoyed about what you've done in your channel and some of the other great Bond content channels online, is that yes, there's some attention being given to the officially licensed products and the official brand partnerships, many of which are, let's face it, very good. Mm-hmm. I mean, and McAllen.
Can't argue. I've been enjoying it.
But you've also done a very good job of tying in sort of the alternatives in the space and bringing some attention to the idea that to sort of exist in the James Bond lifestyle and absorb that mindset, you don't have to have that thing.
No.
It could be about things in this category at any price point that give you that feeling and that experience, and you get to tap into that romanticism.
You nailed the number one meaning of the Bond lifestyle, which is feeling.
Yeah.
If you buy a polo, and I don't care where you buy the polo, and it makes you feel like that moment in Casino Royale, then that's the Bond lifestyle. Mm-hmm. It's not about, I'm just going to say this, which sounds absolutely against my channel, it's not about the label in the back or how much you spent. Nobody cares. So we've got to dovetail this.
Yeah.
We've got to move this, because we are now surrounded by posters and lunchboxes and things like that to Live and Let Die. I've got to ask you a very simple question. Let's start simple. Live and Let Die. Fan of the film? Not a fan?
You know, I think it was a really interesting way to introduce a new Bond. It's probably not the story I would have picked had I been, at the helm at the time. But I love the film. I also think, and not to politicize this, that's a pretty tough novel to read in retrospect. There's a lot of racial insensitivity, more so than in others. And the film does go there, but not nearly as hard as the novel does.
Yeah.
And there are some elements of the race discussion that I think are a little challenging still to watch. But I think the magic of having a voodoo story as a cover for international drug smuggling, and then having a sort of ephemeral tarot reading, also Jane Seymour.
And Jane Seymour. Yeah, mic drop.
We're done here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, so I'll see your racial discussion, and I'll raise you a Sheriff Pepper, because one of the things I thought was genius about the producers and the writers was they took him and they said, we get it.
Yeah.
Like, this is the representation of racism, of what's going on. So if you use that as kind of the compass point of everything that's going on, we're in on it.
Yeah.
We understand that.
And he's just a good old boy in all the classic tropey ways that didn't exist, in the novel.
That's right.
So,
and by the way, so popular,
credit where credit's due.
They brought him back.
Right.
With the Golden Gun.
I know.
So there is that.
He didn't get his name though on the poster like Jaws did.
That's true.
Jaws is back. Didn't say Sheriff G.W. Pepper back.
Yeah. All right, here's how we want to kind of round this out, because it's still Live and Let Die, but it brings the whole Bond lifestyle, Live and Let Die celebration together. We've got to talk about some of the watches in Live and Let Die.
Yeah.
Which one do we start with first?
Well, let's start with the first one in the film.
Let's do it.
All right, so the Pulsar P2.
Yeah.
You know, this is kind of a funny thing to look back at through the lens of history, because I think when most people think about James Bond watches, they're going to think about Rolex or they're going to think about Omega.
They are.
But there's so much other stuff in the mix. There's Tag Heuer. There's lots and lots of Seikos. You know, just to name a few. There's this weird moment where we've introduced a new James Bond, and the first time we see him, he's asleep with a woman.
Yeah.
But he's asleep.
Sort of asleep. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's wearing a watch with a liquid crystal display.
Yeah, which was crazy back then.
Which was top of the line.
Yeah.
All right. And those didn't age well for a very long time. And now they're kind of back.
Yeah.
And interestingly, there is sort of a 70s, 90s revival happening right now, sort of stylistically across watches, across fashion. So I'm not surprised by it. In fact, Hamilton, who owns Pulsar, reissued it just a couple years ago.
And we have actually some of the people today
there we
wearing
go.
some of them. Right over there.
Kyle's got one. Yep. So, yeah, that's like, but there was a time when that was like not very cool.
Right.
But it was then, and it is now.
And space age, and the whole thing
Very
of
space age.
Bond being on the cutting edge of technology and modern, I think showed that off well.
Yeah.
But we also had some watch aspects that harken back a little bit more traditional.
Absolutely. Shortly thereafter, he's presented with a repaired reference 5513 Submariner.
Oh.
The Submariner 5513 is perhaps the most iconic wristwatch in history. It is probably what a lot of people in the world visualize when you say the word wristwatch.
Yeah.
Of course, it had been on Her Majesty's Secret Service and had been predated by the big crown models that Sean Connery wore. So it's the evolution of the Submariner line, which we would see all the way through Timothy Dalton.
Right.
That watch it's the perfect watch.
It is. And it's highlighted with a gadget now.
Two gadgets.
Two gadgets.
Two
That's
gadgets.
Right. My God,
we got a super magnet.
Yeah.
And of course the buzzsaw bezel,
which he uses, because we've had gadgets before, but I mean now he's actually utilizing.
He used the magnet multiple times in the film.
That's right.
And then
first time was the most important.
The zipper.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. I've never done that.
No, that's an HR issue. I get that.
Yeah. But the buzzsaw is. I mean, I think if we were to take a poll, let's take a poll. Let's make a poll.
Okay.
What are like the fan favorite brand? Watch gadgets in Bond.
Yeah.
I think the buzzsaw is going to rank very high.
We could do that. We'll have that in the comment section.
Yeah, right.
That's going to go crazy.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got that. And by the way, very quick, sad story. My father-in-law, his name is Mark Hazard, just by sheer coincidence. Mark Hazard, very Bond name. You know it if you know it. Had the 5513 Rolex. Yep. He got it early on. His brother got the same watch, and he wound up selling the watch for parts for $100 to somebody because he wasn't happy with the way it kept time.
Well, we all make stupid mistakes.
Not stupid. I would say that this was just a moment in time. Very intelligent guy, but yeah.
Stupid.
All right.
But then there's one other watch.
Yes, which is the craziest one.
Yeah, and I'm actually wearing it because I had this sneaking suspicion it would come up. This is the.
Take that off for a second.
Okay, can we hold this up to the camera?
Yeah, we're gonna do the whole 1970s 3D effect.
Do the thing.
Really high tech here at the Bond Experience. There it is. We'll get some B-roll of this.
Yeah.
But tell us about this watch.
So that's it's a Tissot. It's a PR516. This watch sort of appeared on Roger Moore's wrist during a couple different scenes, most notably in the boat chase in the bayou. This is a pretty rare watch, actually. It wasn't a super valuable watch then. It isn't a super valuable watch today compared to so many of the other Bond watches we're talking about. But this was very much the sort of primary export Swiss brand watch. Tissot was one of those recognizable brands that didn't have the luxury cachet but made a quality product.
Right.
And this particular one this took me a long time to track this down. This has got the exact same case, bezel and dial configuration, which was a luck of the draw here because there were a number of different versions, and even the correct signed multi-link stretch bracelet.
Yeah.
It's actually elasticized.
Oh, wow.
So 70s it hurts.
So 70s. So Roger Moore.
So Roger Moore. And yeah.
James, what is the story with this? Was this Roger Moore's personal watch, and it wound up that they didn't make a switch to the
That's,
the
I mean,
Rolex?
honestly, David, you probably know better than I. I've heard two things.
Okay.
I've heard that it was his own watch and somebody blew it in the wardrobe department and
Yep.
didn't swap it out. I've also heard that it was a gift from one of the director producers, or maybe somebody even higher,
Yeah.
and he just sort of snuck it in. Hard to think that nobody noticed, but it does go back and forth a couple times, and there are some continuity problems in that film, to be fair.
Sure.
I mean, during the police car crash,
Right.
I mean, you can very clearly see them wearing the crash helmets in the police car. So it's not what we would call a ultra high-end production.
But nobody 50 years ago thought that there'd be a room full of crazy people
Yeah.
studying the aspects of that.
Well,
so
thank
you
God
gotta
there
give them
are.
Forgiveness.
Thank
I
God
know.
there are.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, otherwise we'd be out of job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
James, thank you so much for this journey, for walking down this road, for helping us reignite the whole idea of live and let die. We appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for being here, all of you.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Miss Ellen.
Yes.
And this has been David Zritsky for the Bond Experience. We'll see you all real soon. Take care. Thanks for watching this episode. If you want to be up on the latest from the Bond Experience, just click on this subscribe and subscribe to our channel. You're going to get all the latest and greatest information, plus some exclusive content. And by the way, speaking of content, here's something especially for you, just because we know you. Talk to you soon.